All right, hey everybody, we'll go ahead and get started. It's 4 o'clock, so you can hopefully get out of here before traffic's too bad. I don't know, traffic's always bad. I'm Justin Boone. I am the IT service delivery lead for Tableau here at Georgia Tech. And we're going to talk about how do you harness the power of Tableau in your role here at Georgia Tech, regardless of what that role is. You don't have to be a dedicated report developer in order to use Tableau. And so we're going to talk, how do you get started using Tableau? If you already are using Tableau, maybe this will be a good refresher for permissions and everything like that. But I'll pass it over to Kenji to introduce himself.
Thank you, Justin. I'm Kenji Terawaki. I'm business intelligence developer under the EDAI team. I've been at Georgia Tech for 10, 11 years. Jesus Christ, I got my numbers wrong, right? Go figure it out. That's it. That's who I am. I hope everyone had a coffee because it's a lot of information. Hopefully you like it. So, nope. Good.
All right. So a quick agenda of what we're going to talk about today is mainly it's going to be around self-service analytics. We'll talk about what that means. We'll do a little introduction to Light. I know most of you in here have probably used the Light reports before. And then we'll dive deeper into what happens if you need a little bit more out of your data than these curated reports. Talk about becoming a tenant into Tableau server in order to use your own data, share some reports, talk about all this. Roles and permissions are one of the cruxes of why we use Tableau, is we can manage these permissions and data access at enterprise scale. So we'll talk a little bit about how that is structured. We'll go through the entire report development workflow, or maybe recommended report development workflow that report developers go through whenever developing reports, all the way from connecting to data sources to publishing their reports. We'll discuss managing your data sources. That's a big thing that you need to be able to, one, have the data sources that you're trying to build from for your reports, and two, know how to appropriately manage those data sources. And then we'll wrap up with some how do you stay engaged in the Tableau community here at Georgia Tech, and then leave some time at the end for Q&A.
Okay, so let's talk about self-service, what and the story about it. How many of you guys actually were here when Nick and Andrew was presenting? Yeah, so good luck, because this is great news for us. We're gonna actually dive into the how and that diagram that it was shared with you. Is basically dive in on the how of that. Self-service, as Nick was highlighted, it started basically in 2021 as a project with the idea of empowering departments to analyze and discover pattern on shared institute data in support of their own custom needs. So make your work more efficient, having you the ability to access data in the way that is aligned to the OIT goals with democratization of data, and having you to have that freedom to sit in a table and talk about your data along with institutional data. That is the main concept of self-service. So we're so proud to say today that there are more than 200 developers, onboarded developers in our system, which means a lot of work for our team because we have to actually assist after these developers get onboarded. But we're really proud because while we facilitate our job, we're not developing specific report for different departments. You doing that job for your own departments. We just guide you through the process of how to connect your data with institutional data.
So in order to do this, we use Tableau, and sometimes we're asked, why Tableau, right? The first bullet point here is it just works. Like, it has the functionality that we're looking for to provide this ability for departments to do their own analytics and share their reports. Another big reason that we use Tableau is we know how to manage the permissions and how to grant people access to the data sources that they need to do their work. We are investigating some other platforms out there to kind of expand this out from just Tableau into like Power BI or some other platforms. But how to, Microsoft permissions management is a mystery to a lot of folks. So we're trying to figure this out to figure out how we can scale this out to everyone. But we know how to do it with Tableau, and we know how to not only provide access to these data sources that you need, but how to govern that access and be sure you're not accidentally exposing. We don't want to be the next data breach, So that's one big reason that we use Tableau is it works and we know how to govern it. Luckily, we already had existing infrastructure on campus for Tableau Server, and so we were able to use what we have to provide this service. And there's a robust Tableau community, not just in general, like if you Google Tableau community, there's all these articles out there, but on Georgia Tech's campus itself, we have, as Kenji mentioned, we have over 200 developers on campus that are working in Tableau, building these reports. And so if you come across something and you have a question, we have this Teams where you can post that question, we can start this conversation and help support each other. We don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do like one-on-one consultations with every report developer about every report, but we're all nerds, and if you post a question, we'll try to figure it out just like for personal gratification, if nothing else, right? Okay, so we talked about the what. Now let's talk about how it's beneficial or why we want to allow units to do their own data analytics. And we'll tackle this from more like personal stories about how self-service analytics has helped us. So prior to my role in OIT, I used to be the assistant director for the tutoring center here on campus. We had around 140, 150 student staff. We did one-to-one tutoring sessions, plus sessions. We did these group sessions. We did embedded some learning assistants into lectures. It was a pretty big operation. We had all of this, these student interactions. And between just like, since we swapped to one USG, like approving timesheets was a way too big part of my job. My main role wasn't necessarily to do analytics on what we were doing in our center. It was more keep the wheels running and be sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, right? And with that, I didn't really have much time to do analytics on what we were doing, but I did pride myself on really developing our program so that I can collect good, clean data. Right? We had all of this information about these student visits. We had, who was the consultant, who was the faculty member, what did they talk about, what did the students struggle with? We had all this information that we were gathering. I just started out like a lot of us probably do with these large Excel sheets with multiple tabs for like different months or different weeks to share with like different instructors to be like, hey, Dr. Greco, here's your weekly report on physics tutoring or whatever. And it just wasn't manageable. One, I didn't have the time, right? Two, it wasn't like a good experience for them to like get these constant things. There's no like good historical comparison. And so I knew there had to be a better way. And so I ended up talking with Kenji and the reporting team, and they were like, bro, there's definitely a better way to do this than what you're doing, right? And so they really opened my eyes to access to all of this enterprise data that I wasn't collecting, because I was collecting, mainly visit data. I wasn't necessarily knowing, what's the student's major, what was their like city of birth, or all this stuff that I didn't really like need to collect for every single visit. But I had access to these things now, right? And being able to join my visit data, which still proud that it was pretty clean, with this institutional data, these other data sources to get major SAT scores, like what did we think they would do in this class if they didn't have tutoring and all of this, right? It not only made my reports much easier, where it's like, next week, all I have to do is click refresh and it refreshed the data reports that were for the different instructors or departments or stakeholders. It made my reports better. It made me able to do more than just count beans of like 14 people came to the math lab for Calc 2 on Tuesday. Like it made me actually be able to see students who visited Plus, for physics 2, at least 5 times, we're like 80% less likely to withdraw or fail the course, right? And those are good for like marketing for students to be like, hey, come to Plus so you don't fail physics. But it's also good to like show like, okay, here's an impact we're having. Like we know that we're doing it, right? We know tutoring is good. We know that we're like supporting student success. We don't think anybody's going to be like, hey, let's just stop tutoring because it's not working or whatever. But we were able to demonstrate like, here's what we're doing, here's how we're accomplishing what we're doing. And more importantly, like how can we improve what we're doing to have a bigger impact? How do we measure that, right? And so with this self-service analytics, being able to come in, bring all of this data that I had, combine it with a lot of institutional data that I didn't even know was out there really at the time. We've been able to really make a plan for like, all right, next year, let's try this, see how it impacts student success. Next year, let's try this, see how it impacts student success. So cool, I'll pass it over to Kenji.
So my story is a little slightly different, but unfortunately the same base of data students. So I was working in career services as an information analyst, and I got the pleasure to work under Casey Chaviano, and Casey actually told me, hey, we need to do something about this data that it was collected from a CRM system that, collect huge amount of data. Unfortunately, this particular software didn't place the students in a timelines where the latest student academic profile. So if I want to look at a student that they were participating in a career fair in 2 years, prior 2 years, I cannot put that students today as a senior or sophomore or junior, etc. So I was invited to be actually part of, and then I moved to under OIT and the Office of Undergraduate Education, which is a bigger scope of data, not only overseeing the CRM system simplicity, but having access to data like for example, Justin. So I was invited to be embedded in the team. By then it was the developer team, and having this access to their Tableau server data sources. How many of you guys have a Costco? This is offline. Everyone, right? When you go to Costco, you walk into the aisles and you see a massive amount of products that you want to buy everything pretty much, right? And you indeed buy everything because of your bill. Same happened to me, but in the virtual world, because when I got access to this data, Nick actually was kind of guide me through these data sources. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I can connect everything. So where's that I was trying to collect from these systems, GTID and class level, degree level, and trying to compare and run my numbers. It didn't match, and I was going bananas. All that I had to do at the end of the day, having this access and correlate my data with institutional data, was collecting the time and the GTID. The rest, it was coming from institutional data. So I was able easily to place that student in a timeline, providing, executive or, directors from departments with the right information. What I gain here, I gain experience. I gain as a developer, I got a voice on a table where I can say, you know what? Your business processes are great, but maybe you can tweak a little bit in order to better collect your data, to better analyze your data, to perhaps clean before that data get into the system. So really, really and truly help me to answer quickly their own questions as a developer. Oh, I keep talking. 6 lights. This is a proud for Nick world, right? As I say, he launched this product in 2017, and he says a 1.0 or 1.0. I think we're in like a 5.0 right now. So Light is basically the initiative was to develop access or a system or a platform that everyone will have access to report that they were accurate, and then they were able to use across campus, and not only across campus, but with the rest of the world. 2017 was our launch, basically. Like he says, probably 10 report. Now there are more than the 40 comprehensive and curated report in Light. And that includes student, HCM, and financial. How many of you guys know Light? All right. you have no idea how happy you make me, because that's the go. And then and of course, Light undergoes to plenty upgrade, maybe once a week, twice a week, if I'm getting short on that. And why is that? Because now we have the experience. We listen to customers. We have customers, they said, I love the enrollment, but it needs this data point that we haven't have access to it. Well, instead of reinvent the wheel, we adjusted. We collaborate with Nick's team and we said, hey, we need to bring this data point into the data source so we can actually add it to the report. Sure enough, it happened. Best example of this one was the GT Europe requested the data points that they were not collecting and were able to correlate. Then we talked to the team. We took a look at the student history report, and sure enough, it was added, done. In 2 weeks, we delivered to the customer the report, which was already there in Light. So, and of course, Light can answer all the questions. Definitely not, because of course, it's been thinking to a global delivery. So the good news is we're still working on update.
Okay, and so let's say you went to Light and you found a report and it answered your question. Cool. Like that's amazing. You don't necessarily need to develop your own report over and over again if it already exists somewhere else, right? But if you need to, one, bring in your own data to connect to some of this institutional data, or if there's a report that doesn't exist on Light and it's not necessarily beneficial to others outside of like you or your unit, that might not be a priority for the Light development team. This is where becoming a tenant and being onboarded as a tenant department into Tableau Server really shines. So first things first, we onboard departments. We don't onboard individuals into Tableau Server. So it's not like we onboarded John into Tableau Server and now he has his own space. We'll onboard specific departments into Tableau Server, and that department will have a group of developers. Sure, we have some departments where it's a sole developer in that group, which is fine, but if they get another developer in, we want them to be able to share their data within that department. And so we want to be able to contain everything for a specific department and not for a specific individual. Partly for our own sanity, so that we know, like, all right, we've set this up for ECE. It's for ECE, not every instructor at ECE. Once you're onboarded as a tenant into Tableau Server, you do get a dedicated space on Tableau Server. You get a folder where you can upload your data sources. We'll talk a bit about the folder structure here in a minute. You can connect to institutional data sources, and we'll talk quite a bit about data sources also here in a little bit. You'll be able to blend your data with these institutional data, and then you'll be able to, most importantly, create and share your reports. We do have a lot of users on campus that will use Tableau Desktop, like isolated from Tableau Server, which is fine. It's just you have to screen share if you're going to share those reports out. And so Tableau Server allows you to develop and create your reports on the server, but also allows you to have a link to that report that you can share out with a colleague on campus to be able to communicate that information. So quick overview of the process of becoming a tenant. First off, we have an initial onboarding meeting with your department where we identify what are your analytical needs, who is your developer team, who are your stakeholders, who do you think are going to be audiences for your reports, what type of reports are you looking to build, do you have existing reports that you're looking to transition over to Tableau, have you ever used Tableau before, are you Tableau curious, or not sure if you want to take the leap or not. We do this onboarding meeting to figure out where you're at and how we can help support you getting onboarded as a self-service tenant. Once we do this onboarding meeting, if we identified that you needed access to some enterprise data sources that you may not have already had access to, we'll initiate that data access approval process where it gets the data stewards to approve you to have access to this. We are not the data stewards. If you come to us and say hey, I need access to FERPA data, and we're no, we can start that process so that somebody can grant you access to it. And then after you are granted access to these enterprise data sources, some of these are massive. Some of these are 500 like data points, millions of rows. They're big data sources. And so we do a quick deep dive on the data sources that you are granted access to, so that we have a common understanding of what definitions are, like term start date versus TRM start date or whatever, right? And then finally, we follow up. We'll talk a bit about staying engaged in the Tableau community moving forward, but we don't just like set you up a space and cut you free, right? Like we support our tenants. That's my whole job, is like supporting tenants into Tableau server and being sure that it's running and that they have the resources that they need. So we're not just gonna like set you free and say good luck. We're here to help. So we'll talk real quickly about roles and permissions on Tableau server. How many people are currently a developer on Tableau server here at Tech? Cool. How many people like just consume reports? Sure. All right, great. Those are our two roles. We have our developers and our viewers, right? The report developers, they have access to everything in their departmental tenant space. And so as I mentioned before, we don't onboard individuals, we onboard departments, right? If you have multiple developers in the same department, all of those developers will be able to see everything in that department's tenant space. So it's really important that all of the developers communicate well, and you're not like willy-nilly deleting things that some other developer is using or anything like this. And you also have access to upload your own data sources to Tableau server if you're a developer, but that requires a Tableau creator license. We'll talk a little bit about licensing here in a minute. But other than that, if you're using existing published data sources, this is completely free. We can list you as a developer on a tenant space so that you can get started building reports, connecting to existing data sources, and sharing those out. Viewers, they can view and digest reports. They can like interact with little filters and things like this. But one of the things that we're about to talk about is all permissions in Tableau server are set at the folder level. And so these viewers are viewers for specific folders. These developers are developers for their specific like container folder, their tenant space folder.
So let's take a look at how this space looks like in reality. This case shows the electrical computing engineer department. So in this case, every attendant will have basically 4 spaces, if we want to call them folders. One is the data source, the other one is the sandbox, and the last 2 are a pair that it goes to live and Q&A. Sandbox is Justin is going to dive in, but a quick overview. Sandbox is where developers actually work, developing the report. Only developers will have access to theirs. It's where you made all the mistakes, where you correlate your data, you validate your data, etc. Data sources is where actually you store your data sources. They're coming from external systems. The Q&A will be your validation folder, where if you're working in a department and you want the department to kind of validate your work once the report is done, and when the report is absolutely approved for everyone, and you want to share with a bigger audience or across campus with people who have FERPA, you can move into live folder.
All right, so digging a little bit deeper here, we're going to talk about what does it look like whenever a developer wants to build a report all the way to sharing it out to the end user or the viewers. First things first, does the report already exist in Light? Right? If it already exists in Light, don't reinvent the wheel. 1, your report is not going to be as well maintained as their report is going to be. 2, if there's like small changes to a Light report that would really fit your needs, reach out to the Light developers. Like we will try to adapt that report to be sure that it fits the most needs that it can fit on campus, right? But let's say the report doesn't exist on Light, or you can't get your question answered there. Next thing you need to ask is, do the data sources already exist on Tableau server? Have the data sources already been published to Tableau server? Can Tableau server connect to those data sources, right? If they have not already been published to Tableau server, if you're using like Excel files or you're using this other system that doesn't have any like direct connections to Tableau server, we need to publish those data sources to Tableau server. In order to do that, you have to have a Tableau creator license because you have to use Tableau desktop or Tableau prep, one of those applications, in order to publish the data sources to the server. And those require a license to activate, right? Otherwise, let's say your data already exists on Tableau server, whether it's published by another developer with a Tableau creator license that's published to your tenant space, or if it's just an institutional data source. We have plenty of departments that almost all of their reports are built off of previously existing institutional data sources, right? That could be like enrollment data sources, financials, HCM, anything like this. If the data source is already existing on Tableau server, then we can provision, as a developer, a free Explorer license where you can use the Tableau web editor, not Tableau desktop or Tableau prep, but the Tableau web editor, which is pretty much one-for-one for Tableau desktop, except for you can't publish data sources from it. The Tableau web editor to build your reports, right? So first thing, does it exist in Light? If not, are the data sources published? If not, publish those data sources. If they are published, cool. Let's open the web editor, connect to those data sources, build our Tableau workbook in the sandbox folder, right? The sandbox folder should be your starting folder whenever you're developing a report. One, because we only ever let your unit developers be able to see what's in that sandbox folder. We never add viewers to it, so you're not accidentally exposing sensitive information if you're like playing around with filters or whatever, just making your report look pretty. You don't have to be afraid of accidentally exposing information to anybody other than your unit developers, right? After you have developed your report and you're like, okay, this looks good to go, I'm ready to like test it, get it vetted so I can share it with the actual audience. The next step is determining who's my audience going to be. Like, who do I want to share this report with, this finished report with? It could be something as simple as like, I want Dr. Cabrera to see it, right? And it could be like a distinct list of viewers, or it could be something like, I want all advisors on campus to be able to see this end report because they could use it in their job, right? Let's take the example of all advisors on campus. Not only do we want that audience, but we also want a list of testers to be able to like QC that data, be sure, is it answering the questions we're trying to answer? Maybe it's somebody like within the field a bit more that can be like, wait, that doesn't make sense because we didn't actually run that program last fall. Why are there numbers for it or something like this? So we determine our audience group for like our final audience for the reports. We determine our tester group, which is who's going to give some QC, so who to QA the report. And we check on server and see, do we have a folder pair? So either like the blue or the purple. Do we have a project folder pair where the viewer group for the live folder is that audience and the viewer group for that QA folder is the testers? If we have that, great. Let's migrate the report to QA just by publishing a copy of it into that QA folder. And then we can share that with anybody that can see that QA folder. Anybody that's listed as a viewer for that QA folder can see that report. They can see all the reports contained in that QA folder. If we don't have a project pair set up for that specific audience and that specific group of testers, you reach out to our team and we create you another set of folder pairs. And we list audiences as viewers for the live folder and the testers as viewers for QA. You can have as many of these project folder pairs as you want, but we do encourage you to think like, who am I typically sharing these reports with? Let's create folder pairs for those. Anytime you need to develop a new report, or maybe you're like tweaking it a little bit, typically your audience isn't changing drastically from one report to the next if they're pretty similar. So you can have all these different reports in the same folder with those same audiences, and you can just keep sharing links out. We good? Any questions? All right, we'll have more time for questions.
So let's talk about how do you manage your data sources. The local data sources, for example, are spreadsheets that you have. This is a little slightly different from what Nick was talking earlier about big software, big data. This is when you have a small version of data that you would like to correlate with the institutional data. Point on case, CSM system simplicity, for example, has a report that you can connect via API to a repository area that is already provisioned from our team, and you can store there that, and then after you actually clean that data or you verify the data is correct, you can publish it to Tableau server. From there, you can actually share with your developing team and sandbox, so everyone have access to data. Remember when we were talking about democratization of data, that is the way that you can make your data accessible to all your team and not only one person responsible for those reports, because typically what happened in that department is everyone was running report out of simplicity, and depends how do you, as you probably know, it depends how you pick up and choose some items from those system is the different numbers you're gonna get. Here you have one person assigned to that one. So that is a sample of local data sources. Direct connection, the best connection we have for that is housing, for example. They use StarRec for their data collection, and they were able to create like a query that then extract the data from that software and connect and publish it directly to Tableau server. Therefore, it's one person responsible for that. It's one source of data that it can be placed on in Tableau server. Every developer from housing will have access to the same curated data that is provided from that software.
So another example of the local data sources, as I mentioned in my previous role, we had all this data from a system that wasn't smart. It didn't have like API calls where you can like connect to. And so we exported to Excel, and then we would save our Excel sheets, our local data sources, in this file repository that's a folder location that can talk with Tableau, right? So one, I could just open up the Excel, like append new visit data to it and save it, and then publish that on a schedule to Tableau server. So like every day at 2 o'clock, it refreshes with any new information that was posted on that Excel sheet. All of my reports that were on Tableau server weren't connecting to that Excel sheet. They were connecting to a published version of that data source, right? And so every time that published version refreshes, it pulls in new data from your Excel sheet. If there's not any changes, it's fine. The data source just doesn't change, right? I think this is where a lot of people start with like their flat files and just kind of publish from there. The last kind over here, these enterprise data sources, these you don't have to curate at all. They're already created for you, right? We have all these source systems, OneUSG Connect, Workday, like, I don't know, Financials, Banner, like you have all these source systems that generate a ton of data. And what our reporting team does is they curate data sources. They say watered down, but they're not really watered down. They're just structured a bit better than a extract, right, from these sources. And not only that, but they'll provide definitions of the different data points that you have. So we're all working off the same common definitions of these enterprise data sources. And you don't have to do anything except for select that data source whenever you open up the web editor to say, like, I want to build a dashboard off of this, right? As long as you're provisioned access to the data source, you can build workbooks from it. Local data source and direct connections take a little bit of setup to get going.
We're great. So far, questions, please. We're gonna go to this slide and we're gonna go for questions. But what happened to you guys after you were embedded? So I'm onboarding with us, right? Have a couple of developers and clients right now. You are one of my clients. So now it's one of my clients. Like, who else is not onboarded here? Who is onboarded in our team? Mayra, you have access to our. Yes, just also. So what happened to you guys after you onboarded? How do we engage to you? Because we're not gonna let you there and, like I said before, I just pick up the Costco card and walk on your own. No, we're not gonna let you do that. We're gonna meet with you in one-on-one, a couple of meetings until we're gonna kind of put you in that position. Say, hey, please meet with us. We give you a little tour, and then you will be able to just start developing some samples, get familiar with the concept, data points, etc. Now, like we mentioned before, Tableau themselves has a huge international community that you can have access from anywhere, right? And then they're pretty quick. I have used that community, Tableau community, but we have one in our own home, which is Georgia Tech Tableau community. So please, if you do have a phone, if your phone can capture that, you're welcome to stand up and actually capture. But if you go into your teams and then select or search for the Tableau community, you can access that team channel accessing with that code, and then voila, you're going to be part of the teams. What do we do in this team? We share best practice. Somebody asks questions. We have James there. He's a very, very active in that community. He's always posts something and it's cool stuff, cool questions, and also we provide you with information about system maintenance and updates that we provide. So please join the community because it's really, really awesome community. We have probably, 200, Andre? Probably plus the 200. Then we also have a web a platform that we host the documentation, a video library. The documentation is about the data sources and the different areas, which is ACM or financial or students. So a part of the meeting with us, also this documentation will help you to navigate through those data sources and find the definitions and the sources of those data points. Once a month, we meet in Lunch and Learn. People does the presentations on and case studies or best practice, as simple as to create a donut pie to more complex visualizations. Happened once again, once a month. Office hours on Friday, once a month again. And just stop by. It's a virtual, so that's when we say virtually stopping by. You ask the questions, and we have a very awesome question from Maida, for example, put you in the spot, Maida, and about a geolocation question was she was building a map. So those kind of things, because we like been addicted to data, so we almost trying to help our customers. So questions. I hope you like it, right? It was very simple presentation in terms of the concept, but what we wanted to walk away you guys with is that if you, personally, I remember 5 years ago, everyone was like, no, this is my data. You don't have access to this data. Or how do I can get the real number of enrollment? How do you actually come up with that number? So for developers that they become onboarded, now they can answer that questions. They can see it in their own screen. So that is the takeaway on these presentations, that we open it up these doors for you guys to actually have access to whatever data or whatever department you work with. So.
Any questions?
Yes, Maida.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. So first, I will say that the Tableau community is a subchannel of the data community. So if you're watching this, just scroll down. And the message that I had posted earlier was we're switching away from keys, like the 16-digit keys to activate Tableau Desktop, Tableau Prep, into a login-based license management. And so on your Tableau software, whether it's desktop or prep, if you go up and click like help manage keys, and then you can activate by signing into the server, and you'll just use your Georgia Tech credentials to activate that. Anybody that has a currently active key can go ahead and activate using sign-in. And the keys will be going away. I haven't gotten a definitive date on when they will stop working, but whenever they do stop working, it'll just ask you to sign in, and you'll be able to sign in to continue using it. So there shouldn't be any downtime there.
I call you, Maida. Yeah, I call you. I call you tomorrow.
Cool. Any other questions? Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about when people choose to use this solution versus other solution, Power BI comes to mind, but obviously reporting that could be built out in any number of the enterprise apps. So can you talk a little bit about how people should be going about deciding where to implement the type of reporting that they're?
That's a great question. So the question was about how to decide between which platform to implement whenever you're starting your reporting for your department, whether it's Tableau or Power BI or some other software program. I'm pretty agnostic whenever it comes to this. But I do think that we have the infrastructure set up currently to help support departments getting into Tableau. We've got this community that can help like assist getting you up and running. And then we also have enterprise data sources ready. And those are like my reasons to gravitate towards Tableau. We are looking at how do we manage data access for these enterprise data sources to other platforms like Power BI or other things. Super anecdotally, just personally, Power BI has been great for me to do like quick things myself that like I'm trying to find an answer or like want to share a real quick thing. But whenever it comes to who can see what I've created or like how do I like manage the group that can access this, it's been a little bit more difficult. But I think there's a learning curve with any of them, right? I moved from Power BI Excel over to Tableau, and I remember being super frustrated and like, why is there no count if, or like, why can't I do that? Like these things that I was used to doing in the other softwares. But I think you just got to be creative, and any of them could work, but not a very good answer. It's like pick your poison maybe for the.
Well, I think the takeaway of that is basically security, right? I mean, the way you select your audience and when you select the audience, the folder is provisioning access upon their department. So I think that creating that secure environment, not only for developers, for viewers, and selecting who is going to be your data, people vetting the data, or people actually accessing the data, or how the people actually can download the data, whereas it's going to be like in a PDF format or in a curated data or consolidated data, aggregated data. For me, it's more the security thing, because that's what I tell my clients. You can work in this environment totally secure. And actually, good point also, it's in our data sources, we provide you with elements that actually protect the audience and see, for example, in the student numbers, person who doesn't have a FERPA within Georgia Tech can see numbers below 10, to give you an example. And that is something that is a key that we provide you within the data source, so you don't have to recreate the wheel on that one.
Great question. So the question was, is there a threshold between your own reports being alive in your space and maybe publishing those reports to light for the broader campus community to use, right? I'm going to pass that over to Kenji.
Yeah, so it's a great question. So if the report that you created, we're going to meet with you when you come in on board and say, hey, Kenji, I wanted to develop, or our director, so I want to develop something that is very specific for my department. And I can think example really quick, but anyways, very specific to your department. Correct. For example, good God. That is a great example. So that probably is going to be, your audience is very limited, right? And you want to keep it like that way. Now, if you're going to come to me and say, hey, you know what, guys, I wanted to know how many students actually have access to these laboratories during the academic year, for whatever reason, and that we find there's a value of information for the rest of the campus, we're going to say, okay, let's work together, let's develop this report, and let's place it on light because we find valuable for everyone on campus. But if it's something specific, we're going to advise you to use your folders to control your audience and who is going to utilize that report. But definitely, if it's something that is like campus-wide and we find the potential, we're going to assist you, and then we're going to, of course, provide requesting your approval for be posted in light.
One other thing I'll add is if we publish things to light, data accuracy is super important. Like if we publish one of your reports and there's something wrong with it, trust in the data goes down. And so like we want to be sure that if we're publishing there, like it's been well vetted and we can trust the data, right? But if it comes to how do I share it with the broader campus community, the viewer groups on those folders can be super broad. It can be like anybody with a Georgia Tech login can view this report or whatever, right? We even have public folders, but we use those sparingly to be sure we don't accidentally expose more information.
Yes. So if we have some departments that actually they use the report they build in our server, and they want to place it in their website. So once you develop the report comes to us. We kind of overview the report, we take a look at it, and then we send it to registrar office to validate the data, just to be sure that everything, not only the data is correct, but also is protected, and what type of data you're sharing. When we get the approval, we provide you with embedding code, and you can place it in your website. So it's very straightforward, though. It sounds very complicated, but it's not really. As long as the data is good to go, the report is going to be good to go.
Fantastic question. So the question was, can faculty members use Tableau in their classes? And if so, how do they get started with it? There are academic programs for Tableau. What we're talking about here is more for like your work, like business purpose as a staff employee and like to get this work done. And so for this, that's what we're licensed for. Academic work, if you're talking about a teacher in a classroom, whether it's to teach Tableau or whether it's to teach like how to do this like analysis methodologies or whatever. There's Tableau academic programs where they can sign up for a 1-year like free license, and they even get their own space in like Tableau Cloud and all of this. We want to caution, don't put institute data on Tableau Cloud or anything like this. Like there's definitely parameters around that. But if you, I don't know, it's like tableau.com/academic programs or something like that. Tableau for teaching, thank you. Yeah.
And what was the other question?
Great question. So the question was about whether we could do like row level security for like, if I'm this user, I see this information on the report. If I'm this user, I see this other information. You can do that in Tableau. We have plenty of our reports where they do show you that information, like show me all my direct reports that haven't done the compliance campaign. So do that. And so that's definitely a functionality. It's not like out of the box or whatever. Like there's just some calculated fields that you do for that specific row level security. Our Tableau server pulls the viewer by Active Directory, and so you can set like if the viewer's username is this, then show them this or whatever, or if their title is this, show them this. So yeah, that's a functionality there.
Thank you for the questions,
Yeah.
James.
Can viewers have custom views? Yes, viewers can have custom views. So custom view is if you like pre-filter something and you want to share that specific view with another user. We're actually providing that for more of the light reports where you can pre-filter a light report and then send that link out so that somebody can see your pre-filtered view or like custom view, right? Yeah.
Great questions.
So how do I get onboarded into Tableau server? Great question. So you can contact me or Kenji. We work with onboarding these departments. We know it can be daunting for departments to like, oh, I don't really have time to like step into this yet, right? Well, trust me, once you get in there, you're gonna want to spend more time on it. Like, I mean, if I did, I was like, oh no, I got to do my day job too. But it's something that can save you so much time moving forward, especially if you are doing this, like constantly updating your reports manually. Don't be afraid of the upfront time commitment for what it's gonna save later.
Don't forget to stop by Costco. I'm kidding.
One of my department gets a spreadsheet from our vendors, set of vendors, and you make some determine. And my question is possible to connect some data for vendors? Should this Tableau server directly without pass through us like come to us the table and you send to them and also create this action.
Great question. That would be an integration. That would be.
Yeah, that would be in the integration. And then it's a flat file. I mean, probably, yes, it's still integration, I think, right? It depends too, right? If it's a flat file that you're going to use it one time in your entire life and career here, so yes. I mean, if it's one single report, yeah, we're probably going to advise you how to manage. That's what, with the package of your sandbox and Q&A and live, you're also going to have assigned repository area on the server that you can actually store those, for example, report or Excel sheet that you wanted to utilize, and you not need to technically publish. If it's a one-time report that you're going to use for the presentation, for example, you don't need to publish that data into the server or up to the server. You just use it directly from your desktop version. That, once again, that's if you have a desktop version of Tableau.
One quick plug, there's a Power Automate session coming up. I think it's tomorrow. And you could set up like Power Automate to update your data source that Tableau talks to. But yeah.
And run flows from server, correct?
Yes, it's a folder level permissions. Not all folders have run flow enabled, but if you do need to be able to run a flow from the server, reach out and we can.
You have a script in your flow that got data and bring it into that folder.
Should work. I don't want to say yes, but I want to say yes, if that makes it like.
You really want to say yes?
Yeah, I do. We are over time. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
if you have any
it.
questions, we're up here.